Welcome, everyone, to the Cash Rules podcast. We're back again. My name is Keith Smith, and I'm here with my co-host,
Fabyan Roldan. What's up, everybody?
He's the head of research. He's the educational program development specialist that we have here. And today, we're actually here with a very special guest, Cort Twitty. I want to start off by making sure that we are all aware that none of what we are discussing today should be taken as legal, financial, and or tax advice. Instead, the objective of this conversation is to just highlight some of the unspoken rules in finance, to talk about why these concepts often go unspoken, and what we can be doing ourselves on a practical level to change that reality in an informational, educational capacity. So with that said, Fabyan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing blessed and highly favored. How you doing, sir?
I am absolutely incredible. Sometimes people are starting to call me the Hulk. Sometimes they call me Mr. Incredible even. So it's been a good time.
But hey, Cort, let that green skin flow.
Yeah. But Cort, we got a special guest with us, man. How are you doing today, Cort?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on, guys. It's a pleasure.
Likewise.
Yeah, man, of course. And we like to kind of just get started with a little brief background. Tell us, Cort, who are you? Where are you based out of? Tell us a little bit about your history, what you do on a daily basis.
You bet. So I'm located in Sundance, Utah. I'm an author. I'm also a licensed financial professional. But for the past 15 years or so, I've been studying finance as it relates to mental health. Now, I've written a book with optional worksheets. It's called Godfidence, The Art of Quiet Confidence and Emotional Intelligence, in an effort to better help people understand the mental health and the emotions behind finance.
Love that. That's huge. It's a very big topic. It's something that doesn't go talked about very often, yet it's really always there for anyone who's making financial decisions or participating in the financial world. And you said you're a licensed professional. Tell us, in what way are you licensed?
I'm a licensed financial fiduciary. So I'm big into education. So I like to educate both individuals and families. But where I really get my juices flowing is helping businesses allocate their assets appropriately and getting their portfolio really dialed in the way that they want it.
Got it. And so are you doing that as an investment advisor representative?
I am.
Cool.
I am.
So for everyone who might be interested in learning like what the path to doing something like that is, I imagine that you went through and you passed your Series 65 exam.
Correct.
Okay, cool. So that is a FINRA exam. And maybe could you tell us a little bit about what FINRA is really quickly? Just as a side note, I think it's super interesting.
About FINRA, that's a great question. I'm not sure I have a great answer for you.
Yeah, that's okay. So FINRA.
We're being straight, right?
Yeah, no,
very.
I appreciate it. It is the Financial Regulatory Authority, and they play on the legal side of what happens in the securities world, right around trading and stuff like that, which is not the point of today's conversation. So we're not going to dig into that. But outside of that, talk to us a little bit about maybe some of the things that you talk about in your books and like some of the most standout experiences that you've kind of seen in your work with individuals specifically.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the book, I cover 7, what I call the cruxes, or 7 guideposts, if you will. And the first is about busting the negative beliefs that we tell ourselves in our head. And I really think that's the most important one. That's sort of where it all starts, because we all have a negative voice. We all have a committee of voices in our head telling us we're inferior or we're not good enough, or that's for wealthy people, or et cetera, et cetera. And so that's really where the book starts, and we try to bust those negative beliefs behind that can get us down with finance, that can get us to overextend ourselves financially. We really have to think about the conversations that we're having with ourselves and focusing on self-mastery.
Okay, cool. So, and so you said there's like 7 sort of main principles, or what did you call them? The 7, what was it?
Yeah, the 7 cruxes.
Cruxes.
So it's negative belief busting, learning how to reframe those negative emotions. Then it's gaining clarity on where we want to go in the next 12 months, the next 5 years, really getting a picture dialed in of where we see ourselves. Then we've got to learn boundaries with other people, because we can often overextend ourselves emotionally, thinking that we're doing, being Christ-like or being humble by serving others, but we end up over-serving, serving too much. So we're getting clear on all that stuff. We're learning boundaries. We often find that maybe the profession that we're in isn't serving us, but once we've worked through those things. So it's about finding what we're passionate about, what we can just talk about, all day long. Because if we're doing something that we're passionate about, we're no longer working, we're serving. And that's sort of the idea behind the book, is learning how to lead with service rather than leading with what's in it for me or what's the payoff.
Interesting. Very
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah, I think what stood out to me the most, and something that I think is like everyone can take something away from, the boundaries aspect, like learning how to create boundaries around your finances and like making sure that you're not overextending yourself. And you said emotionally, right? Even talk to us a little bit about boundaries. What does it mean to overextend yourself emotionally or even financially? How do you set boundaries around that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So for people that, and it especially happens to really great people, or people that are aiming to be Christ-like or be great people, we can serve to a fault. So we can end up losing ourselves and losing sight of what's important to us and what we want in life, because we're so busy serving everybody else. So you know that you've got problems with boundaries if the saying when you step on an airplane doesn't make sense to you, and it says apply the oxygen mask first before applying it to others. Well, for people like me, we look at that and we think, that's messed up. I'm not going to put it on me first. I'm going to put it on my kid first, just instinctively. But we have to learn to put ourselves first. There's 1,440 minutes in a day. And in the book, I walk through a program, give people a template, and show them how 5 to 10 minutes a day of proactive self work will really take care of the rest of it. It really amplifies all of our other goals, all of our other missions, when we work on us first.
And you know what? That brings me into a good conversation piece, right? And good questions that I feel like everybody, many viewers, myself including, might want to ask you. What are some of the mindsets of people struggling with mental health due to financial situations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So people will often start to feel overwhelmed. They'll start to, obviously that just triggers our survival mind, and when we're stressed like that, we often default to our highest level of training or schooling competency. So that's why the education piece for me is so important, is teaching people about compounding interest and about the rule of 72. It's really important to be able to get through to people so that catch them sort of in time before they hit that bankruptcy stage. Some signs would be, thinking that the world is a little bit gray, like feeling a little bit dark or feeling like there's just a dark cloud following you around everywhere that you go.
Like there's no positive outcome to be seen in the near future or even ever, right?
Right. And that's why suicide rates are higher than they've ever been. Drug overdoses are higher than they've ever been. Bankruptcies are higher than they've ever been. You know, the world that we live in can be a strenuous place and doesn't just run you over if you're not prepared and you don't take the time to really educate yourself and listen to amazing podcasts like this one that you guys put on. It's so informative and just a great representation of what it takes to fill your soul with to be successful.
I appreciate that deeply, Cort. And you talked about education. And in my line of work, I do with a lot of, my line of work is education. It's to make sure the masses are provided with the information without any kind of angle or anything, right? And that brings me up to a good question and a great follow-up. How important is mental health to someone's ability to learn and take in information?
Well, that's a great question because it's crucial. It's absolutely crucial. And mental health gets a bad rap. People, when you say mental health, a lot of people think of the Vietnam vet that's homeless in downtown and, panhandling.
PTSD or something like that, right?
Yeah. And what people don't understand is that that's mental illness. Mental health is a lifestyle. It's a
Ooh.
it's a proactive one day at a time commitment to yourself. And it doesn't take up the whole day. It just takes based on my experience, a few minutes a day keeps you way ahead.
So speak to us a little bit about that too, because you said, 5 minutes or so on just like self-improvement or a few minutes a day, just working on your mental health. What are some of the things that people can actually be doing consciously to work on their mental health on a daily basis?
Yeah, that another great question. You guys are full of them. It's easy to say prayer and meditation. However, a lot of people that are struggling with their mental health, they feel like God's deserted them. They feel like they've been picked on so they struggle with that. And in such a busy society where people's attention span is so small, meditation can be a tall order initially. So in the book, I suggest I use quotation marks around God. I refer to God as him, her, or it, the great mystery, but believing in something beyond yourself. For me, nature is a big one, the universe, but essentially the God that I answer to is karma, and that seems to work pretty well for me.
I love that.
I also absolutely love that. One of the issues, or not even just an issue, I think it's a concern that I have when I'm either talking to someone that I feel like is lacking that motivation or is like lacking that sense of hope, right? Like you said, there's kind of, or the cards are stacked against you, or there's nothing that's like here to try to save you, right? And I don't disagree, right? That some people have the cards stacked against them, right? And maybe shouldn't be looking for anyone, right, in any way to come in and just save them. You shouldn't, right? So I guess my question is like, if someone isn't prepared, right, it doesn't want to find, right, that answer, that reason to continue, right? Like, how do you try to get through to someone like that? And it may not be easy.
Yeah, it's not easy. I had a friend of mine, kind of a friend of a friend, but a 13-year-old little boy shot himself after a football game Saturday, that lives in the same town as me. And somebody commits suicide every 40 seconds, and that just gnaws on me. I lose sleep over that. And I wish I could get to people like that sooner. But to answer your question truthfully, you really don't know when the miracle is going to happen, but you've got to give yourself a chance. You've got to suit up every day and believe in yourself, or believe in the possibility that maybe there's something bigger than us that's out there, a source, if you will, that we can tap into. And when we learn how to tap into that, it life becomes beautiful. You suddenly notice the sky is bluer, that the ocean looks more beautiful, or whatever the case may be. You start to gain that self-awareness, and once you gain that and you combine it with financial strategies such as the ones that you guys outline, you just become um, like a double threat in life, and life just becomes great again. But I can relate to those people that feel like they're stuck, that just can't get ahead. I was in a drug and alcohol treatment center 12 times in 12 years, inpatient, not including ER visits and and all that stuff. So I get it. Like, I've been bankrupt. I understand. I've had epic failures, but there came a time when all that suffering, all that failure suddenly became purpose, and it all mattered. And I became grateful that I suffered the way that I did, because it allows me to get through to a broader range of people now.
So let's take a full step back. And first off, I think I speak for Cash Rules, and I say condolences to your friend's son. Any kind of loss is a major loss, and the youth loss is always one that's tragic for the future of anybody, right? Because that could be the minds in which that would change the minds and bring in the direction of something better for the world. So my condolences to you, and then also to thank you for sharing an inside story in terms of your travels and in terms of your experiences and what you've dealt with. And I would like to take a step back, because you're in the field of prevention too, right? It's not only fixing but preventing. How would I'm an individual, I don't know what's going on with me. What are some of the indicators that someone is struggling with mental health? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so isolation, uh, a lot of times of people that are struggling with mental health, their world shrinks down to, oftentimes to, like, it gets to the point where it's like a single bedroom when they commit suicide. But they start to get closed off. They don't communicate like they used to. They like to be alone a lot more than they have in the past. And they really start to push people away, um, as they sort of kind of I want to say stumble, but as they're suffering. So it really takes somebody that can relate to them, somebody that can get into their little world and plant that little seed of hope, that may end up blossoming and turning into something much bigger. But you never know. But if you stay alive and you take suggestions from other people, man, life can get so much better. Life is beautiful. There is beauty. But I do realize that for some people, it takes some time. It's a process to find that beauty. And so hopefully it's people like you guys and like me and podcasts like this that can help spread the message of hope and to people, and get through to them that we need them. We need each and every person, because we're all in this together, and every person matters.
And I love the way you said that too, because the thing is that it's not just the individual that has to acknowledge it. It's family, friends, confidants that also have to acknowledge these differences, that these kind of indicators that you've conveyed to us are very telling. An individual who's always been talking to me is now all of a sudden pushing me away, doesn't want to talk. Something is wrong. Maybe it is that time for a checkup call, or maybe a check-in visit. And you're totally right. What are some ways, what are some of the ways that people get to this point in their lives?
Yeah, I've found that overextension financially is a big one. So, um, credit card debt, or feeling like you're upside down in something. Um, one of the kind of, I don't want to call it a trigger, but something that you can be aware of and gain that self-awareness is a lot of times if you're using you hear the term retail therapy, and it's, going out and spending money certainly makes you feel better, but that's why it's called retail therapy. But if you have a tendency, or you notice lately you've been overdoing retail therapy and overextending that line of credit that you have, or that store's credit card, that's usually a pretty good indication that you need to spend some time on you, and either do get with a financial professional or a mental health professional, and just talk, hey, is it possible that maybe I'm overextending myself, or maybe this retail therapy is trying to mask, am I trying to mask something subconsciously without knowing it? Am I spending money to avoid, being at home, or everybody's case is a little bit different, but there are some identifiers that are usually, worth exploring when you're up against them.
Love it.
Yeah, so that's actually super interesting, because to me, what I'm kind of hearing is that financial indicator could actually be an indicator of an overextension mentally, emotionally, right? So a way that you can kind of tap into that emotional side is actually look at your balances. I think that's super interesting. And on top of that, it's kind of one of the biggest questions that I kind of had around this conversation, as we talked not too long ago, because like I feel like there's sort of a reflexivity of the situation too, right? Where maybe I'm experiencing something in my personal life that leads to me not being able to make a certain kind of a financial decision, or rather making a poor financial decision unintentionally. And then through that unintentional sort of accident, or just not paying enough attention, I'm now suffering from the fact that I actually have a worse financial situation. Right. And so like, I feel like that can kind of pile up on you, and like you start to get into this downward spiral where you've lost control of everything. Can you talk a little bit about like maybe how you see that reflexive relationship between like financial and emotional health?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was an executive, had a healthy 6-figure job, had, uh, had the family, had the house, had everything. But inside I was hollow. I was just suffering. Uh, and over 80% of suicides, their immediate family and friends say they didn't know. They didn't know that person was suffering. They didn't know they were suicidal. So, as we become, I think, emotionally kind of detached from things, we either get over controlling of money, or we stop caring about money, and things like bills, and we just either lose interest, or we try to overcompensate and kind of over control that. But a lot of people are very, very good at hiding how they're feeling. I know I'm not the only one, but I decided to come out of my shell and share my story, so that, um, like Fabyan mentioned, so that we can try to prevent the next 13-year-old from not committing suicide, and maybe, just taking a different route, just pausing, just keeping yourself alive, keeping yourself present for your family and your loved ones. And if you're incapable of doing that, asking for help, which is also very hard for people to do.
Yeah, and I do want to spend some time thinking about, well, actually, let's talk about that. If you are in that position, where do you go for help?
That's why I do what I do. I'll take dentists, for example. Dentists have the highest suicide rate of any other profession, and they have for over 20 years.
Whoa, really?
Yep. Still to this day, the words mental health are not spoken in dental school or medical.
Really?
Yep.
You just blew my
Nothing's
mind.
nothing's mentioned. So, I looked into it, and we're basically the structure of the system. I know here where I'm at in Utah, the state statutes haven't been updated since the 1940s around mental health. So if I'm a dentist, I'm not signaling anything. I can't even tell my MD, You can't get on any sort of anxiety uh, 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 medicine. You can't say that you're depressed or that maybe you're feeling a little gray or something might. So you stomach it because you're worried you're going to lose your license. So we're basically forcing dentists into one of two things, either addiction or suicide, to to cope with some of their mental uh, health and stress related jobs. Their jobs are very, very hard, and they're the ones that are the professionals supposed to have all the answers all the time. So for them to turn and ask somebody else for help, that's a major ask of them that a lot of times emotionally they're not prepared to do. So I wrote the book as an attempt. You can buy it anonymously. I don't uh, turn you in. Amazon's not going to turn you in for buying it. And the worksheets are available there to hopefully privately be able to steer them in a better direction than suicide or addiction.
It just hit me really hard, like why what you're doing matters so much too, like on a deeper level around like having that anonymity and being able to feel like you can go to someone um, or go to something somewhere about what's happening. Because if you're in a school and you tell someone like, I believe like there are certain standards around like that person has to tell other people, right?
Right.
As their job. And so although that's definitely great and definitely can prevent hopefully a lot of bad situations as well, for kids that are privy, right, or any adult, right, that's privy to that information, they might not feel comfortable talking to these people that are supposed to be these trusted individuals. And so it can kind of have that reverse play on like, okay, well, I could tell someone, but if I tell someone, they're going to refer me to this person and then this is going to be a consequence. But being able to like at least have the option to go and seek out sort of something that's for yourself and that you can allow yourself to kind of have that distance from your identity being a part of it. That's actually really, really important and powerful. And I'm glad that you brought that up so people watching this can think about ways to do that for themselves as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely. There's a lot of medical, say like a hospital chains or organizations, they'll offer like an employee therapy program that you have to go with one of their partnered therapists. And in a lot of cases, I was talking to a nurse earlier today that they have a 7-month wait to get in, and 7 months to somebody that's in a mental health crisis is an eternity. So there's some people that are sort of trying, but we're not doing enough from a proaction standpoint. We're not being proactive enough. We're not saying mental health in dental school. Why? I think with a maybe an hour or two class in the entire dental school will help give them something more than they're getting now. We can't just keep putting our heads in the sand and expecting it not to affect us or people we love and care about. And it's especially important for me to bring this message to affluent people, because there are executives that were just like me that are out there struggling. They're physicians, the top echelon of our of a socioeconomic level, those people aren't getting the message because it's often the best dressed, most well-spoken person in the room that's the most insecure and suffering the most. So that's a big priority, if you will, for me and the book and some of my messaging.
I want to get at something because I think when we first spoke, you talked about this. Why are dentists? I mean, you talked about, obviously they're super highly trusted professionals. They're scared of losing their licenses and stuff like that. What are some of the things that lead to dentists kind of being in that pocket of the highest sort of professionals to watch out for?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The dental industry is very dysfunctional. There are many truncated and I, in my opinion, unnecessary steps that, between the billing to the patient check-in, it's just, there are a lot of companies making a lot of money off the dysfunction. So I don't necessarily expect it all to change. But I don't know if it's the preciseness that a dentist has to work with, all day, every day. I tend to think it's the business side of things, because it's a real hard job to, you get out of dental school and you start your own practice, and geez, you might be $1 million in debt just from opening your first office for all the equipment and everything. So I do see a pretty clear financial correlation between dentists and suicide, but I think there are other compensating factors between their own human resources and training of their own staff, to supplies they have to order, to, hey, I'm $1 million in debt and I don't have a single patient yet. And that's not including, their medical school could be another, $1 million or so. So, I think it's a safe number to say they're at least $1 million in debt. Just the facility alone, just to open an office, bare bones, the average loan amount that Bank of America finances a dentist for is about $550,000 for their first office, just for equipment and the build out, not including student debt. So I do think that that's a really big problem, is the financial side of things.
It's huge. And I wanted to follow up. Do you see a lot of correlation across the entire medical field?
Yes, the top 5 professions that commit suicide most often, they're all over 6.5% per year. Dentists are over 8%. Second is physicians that are 7.87%. Third is pharmacists. Fourth is nurses. Fifth is female dentists, although they attempt suicide at double the rate of the men. So that means there's over 16% of female dentists that are at least attempting suicide every year.
That is crazy.
So it
numbers.
was troubling when I found there are some days where I wish I wouldn't have found this research, because when I found it, it was like, man, I can't ignore that. I have to do something. There has to be some sort of, military is right up there too. But, I asked myself, why are these all healthcare related? And so for the past 3 years, I've done nothing but research and interview and immerse myself in their world to try to figure out why. Because it's a lot of my friends are doctors and dentists, and to think of, 8% of them, one out of, whatever the ratio, you guys are more numbers driven than me, but it's a real problem, and I'm doing my best to create change in their industry, but in suicide specifically.
I'm glad you brought up grouping, right, in terms of professions, right? Because my question was going to be more, there was this Forbes article that came out about a year ago, and it so happened almost a year to date. and it was entitled Financial Insecurity and the Cognitive Decline. What is the link with old age? Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, so cognitive behavioral therapy is kind of the modern day. Of course, there are many solutions, and there are many people that are better equipped to discuss this in detail than me. But cognitive behavioral therapy is kind of the therapy that we use, that most treatment centers or behavioral health places will use, and in my opinion, it's the most effective. The problem that I see is we're too often not willing to do that cognitive behavioral therapy because it's more work, when we can get prescribed a pill that might come close to doing the same thing. Essentially, what I'm saying is we're in a pill happy society. We're in a shortcut, how can I get this done yesterday sort of society. And hopefully with a little proactiveness and getting this out there, that, like with amazing guys like you, hopefully we can continue spreading the message of hope. And I haven't read that specific Forbes article. I definitely will. That's a great resource to have. But obviously, if Forbes is talking about it, then it's got to be pretty important. They don't talk about the BS stuff.
Yeah, it was more of the lines in terms of the tale between two retirements. And they were talking about the effects of COVID-19 in terms of how COVID-19 affected people beyond the age of 65, I believe, or 60, right? And it either forced them into retirement a little earlier, in which where they'll be depleting their life savings a lot faster than they had expected. And then the other side is those who have already prepared and were ready and saved up a lot and were financially literate to invest and etc. Will be more well off than those. So it's an interesting read, yes.
Yeah, I will tell you that a couple of business partners and I are seeking to define the mental health setback in that it caused, that COVID caused from a mental health perspective. So how much damage did COVID really do to our mental state? I mean, you look at little things like the freeway traffic, the average speed is 8 miles an hour faster post COVID than it was beforehand. So I'm attempting to measure that. That's a pretty big project, but essentially COVID was awful for mental health, because the worst things for mental health are isolation and no distance from other people. That just the backlash, the natural causes of COVID, to a degree kind of messed us all up, set us all back, forced us to really pivot. And some of us have done it better than others. But I see in the support group that I run, we've got about 70% less attendance post-COVID than we had pre-COVID, and that's really concerning to me.
Wow. Yeah, that's super sad to hear. And when you think about just COVID really quickly, because there was a health crisis, you had people that had family members and people close to them, friends that were passing away from this. And then towards the very beginning of it, right, there was also, just to bring it back to some of this, like there was a big financial moment, right, in the markets where stocks plummeted really quickly. I remember people talking about selling their retirements, right, at that moment, right, when everything went down. And then you give it a couple of months, quite frankly, a few months later, you had stocks rallying to all-time highs. And I think like before having to sell your stocks at that deficit already, that was enough, right, for your mental. And then to just months later, watch stocks rally and create new highs. Later having the GameStop short squeeze, all of these crazy things that kind of happened in financial markets after that, I can imagine had an extreme impact on people that were dealing with the financial consequences of this as well. I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we live in an incredibly divisive place where the world wants to tear us apart. The equality, both gender equality and race. I've put it out there before. Why do we ask on um, the government survey that we send out to households? Why does it matter?
The census.
Yeah, the census. Thank you. Why does it matter the color of our skin? We shouldn't even ask. We're people. You know, so I strive hard to, I know that I'm getting off topic here, but I really strive to be the voice of reason. Like almost, you know, a lot of my friends are black. My nieces and nephews are black. And so I really stand united with people of ethnic origin that are just doing their best to survive in our country. That was also something that, you know, COVID did, was created a very sharp divisiveness within our country. And that's definitely part of the mental health setback that COVID created. That's part of it.
That is super interesting to think about, because even obviously politically, we will not go there. Things got very divided across the country. But
I'm on y'all's team.
yeah, to take it back a little bit, I wanted to ask you, Cort, if you had any opinions around how technology may be playing a role in how people are interacting with or experiencing this concept of mental health today.
I think technology is wildly important. Prior to getting into writing my book, I was a partner in a up and coming fintech company that we were focusing on the dental industry, and the technology was designed to simplify some of these earlier mentioned truncated processes within the dental industry. And I do see technology helping a lot. I think that with new AI that's coming out, with a lot of the technology that we have, it's not there yet, but we're going to have this. One of these days, we're going to have a blending of positive mental health and a bunch of coders, and we're going to create something just awesome that will help people overcome their anxiety and work on building their mental health in a positive light, so that then they can go and take care of their finances with people like you guys, and get a sound strategy moving forward. Obviously, I do that too, but you can tell I'm a lot heavier on the mental health side of things. So I believe that the mental health portion comes first. That's not a popular point of view in today's society. We've gotten too far away from service first, almost to the point where it freaks people out. They're like, what's the catch here? You know, like service and you don't need to get paid. It's just
They believe it's a catch-22.
exactly. That's exactly what they think. And I kind of see where they're coming from to a degree, but if we had more people leading with service than leading with what's in it for me, you know, that would help a lot. That would help a lot.
Love it. Another technological trend that I think is just kind of along the lines of what we're talking about is just the idea of telehealth in general, right? So us being able to access certain medical health services online is something that I wrote about not too long ago in a blog, and I think it's super interesting to see that. Definitely during COVID, we saw huge spikes in, okay, hey, if you need help, right? Maybe especially for mental health, you can actually start to do some of this stuff online. And with people transitioning to that being more of a standard within like the mental health world alone, it definitely increases, I would imagine, or rather that it increases at least the opportunities, right, for people to be able to get access to some of these services if they couldn't go to an office or things of that nature. But I really have no idea. I just wanted to throw out the idea, and we do see a lot of investment sort of going into the telehealth sector, and specifically, it's growing at a 32.1% compounded annual growth rate, and it's expected to be a market of around $600 billion in 2028. So the trend towards telehealth, I think, is something that is real, and I hope that it's contributing to what's happening in mental health and things like that as well.
And just saying that completely, I just want to say, as you said, telehealth, those who are in need of any suicide prevention, any kind of help, or need somebody to talk to, please dial 988 or text 988 for the nearest person. They'll be there to help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm all over the technology side. I stay in the trenches of up and coming companies and up and coming emerging technologies. And we're not quite there yet, but yeah, telehealth is a part of it, like you mentioned, Keith, and a definitely up and coming sector. But we will get there soon, and we will find a way to use technology in an effective way. And I do have a lot of faith that time is coming soon. And absolute one other thing, absolutely, there's a mental health hotline if you're in crisis. We our government spent $50 million on creating that easier line to dial. And in my opinion, we were kind of misguided a little bit. I'm not sure, five or six numbers are worth that. I think we're just kind of losing sight of the systemic nature of things. But obviously, if you're in crisis, get with a mental health professional. If it's acute, worst case, get to an ER, and have a professional talk to you and consult with you, and create a strategy for you that will get you back on your feet and get you truly living life again.
You had mentioned earlier that you had went through bankruptcy. Could you tell us a little bit about that experience and some of the shortfalls and some of the gains that you've gathered throughout that experience?
Yeah, it was humiliating. It was embarrassing, because I had reached some levels in business that you're not supposed to go backward from there. You're not. So it was something that sort of brought me to my knees. It was what my journey needed to keep my ego deflated. It was like that final deflation of the remaining ego that I had, the cocky ego that I had. Really humbled me quick. I'm grateful for that experience. But I hope I hope that the listeners of this podcast don't have to go through that. But oftentimes that's the only option that we've got when we've reached certain depths.
Now, I don't want to put a negative connotation fully on bankruptcy or filing for bankruptcy, right? What are some of the positives that you could take that you can provide that, hey, the individual who files for bankruptcy can look forward to this, or what are some of the positives to it if they do?
Yeah. I mean, I think that you learn a lot of lessons. You learn more about creditors and how they how they work. You learn more about the resources that are there for you. You get to build relationships with, a new set of people, and you get a fresh start. You get then to look yourself in the mirror and say, all right, that bankruptcy's behind us, and man, where are we going from here? What,
It's like a restart of your credit score too, and that's what you mean by fresh start and everything to the effect, right? In terms of clearing history and everything.
Yeah. Then you've got to work on rebuilding your credit, and that's a whole nother. When your credit's not good, you don't have a lot of options in today's world. So getting that built back up, that for me, that took another person. That took me asking for help in that regard. But man, people that make it out of bankruptcy, it's sort of like, making it out of the judicial system or something. It's just, it's so stressful that when it's over, it is a good feeling to get that behind you. It's kind of symbolic of your old life versus your new life.
I love it. And I think one of the most important takeaways is being able to reach out to someone, right? Like we had one other guest on. He talked about how the biggest mistake he made was just like not telling anyone. And I think we heard from you too, like, reach out to someone who's a professional in this and like have them help you and walk you through what your next steps should be. Love that. Last big question that I wanted to ask you is, where does someone go? We've talked a little bit about your book, to go and get more information in general around the importance of mental health in the world of finance, maybe if there's specific places to go for that, or just in general, where do I go to learn more about this topic that we've discussed today?
Yeah, so you can go to cort.wealthwave.com, or you can go to cort-twitty.com. It's in the process of getting rebuilt, but there's enough information there. And then there's a few awards that I've won this year, that the book's won this year, that you can see on any of my social media handles, or any of those places that I just mentioned.
And then in your building up of the catalog of information that you have, was there anything that you would recommend to anyone else around what they should go and look for or try to check out?
I would just say, at a baseline level, try to practice and get better at asking for help, leveraging people that are educated or trained in an area that you may have a little knowledge, but they've got more. Really leveraging those people and relying on them, and just being a sponge, listening to podcasts just like this one, following you guys, listening to your words of counsel, listening to some of your guests. You guys are really doing a great thing to help people out financially, and you obviously have a deep care about the lifestyle and the happiness of your listeners as well, as evidenced by having me on the show.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think I wanted to definitely like give you a chance to also talk about the two books that it's two books, right? And where we can find those books.
Yeah, so there's one book that's published, and that one's called Godfidence: The Art of Quiet Confidence and Emotional Intelligence. You can find that on Amazon. There's a few different Godfidence books. I hold the copyright, just saying. But you can go to Amazon and search Cort Twitty book, and it will come up, and it's available on Amazon. Or if somebody wants to just if you know somebody that's suffering and they don't have $20, shoot me an email, and let's get the book in front of them. Cort@theheroadvocate.com.
That is awesome, man. I appreciate that. Even last bit, sometimes those in financial struggles might not be able to pay for certain resources. So if you're able to even assist a little bit, I know myself, I appreciate that. I know the viewers do as well.
Yeah, I would love to give that option to your viewers. So if you just shoot me an email, Cort, it's not spelt like you think, it's CORT at theheroadvocate.com. Mention this podcast, I'll send you a copy of the book.
That's huge, man. We appreciate that. We loved it. Love it. Love it. Fabyan, is it time?
It's about that time. They said wrap it around.
So, Cort, towards the end of our conversations, we love to ask our guests a few very quick questions. We call it the rapid round. We just want to know the first thing that comes into your head. Don't think about it too hard. This is a no judgment zone. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, cool. So tell us, Cort, what is money?
Money is paper, but it's freedom.
Love it, man. Love it, man. And then who inspires you the most, dead or alive?
I follow people like Brene Brown, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Oprah, LeBron James, Donovan Mitchell, some of these athletes and people in the public eye that stand for good, but haven't let money get to them to the point where they're closed off and have all the answers. They're constantly improving themselves, and that's who I look up to and aspire to be.
I want to put a big stamp on Dr. Joe Dispenza. I actually only really recently found him, yet I follow a lot of that type of information. So I that just struck me. I love that you watch him and listen to him. That's amazing.
And I'm glad as a Utah fan, you still like Donovan Mitchell.
Love it. And back to the questions. Tell us, Cort, what is your favorite book?
The book that changed things for me and got me to believe in a higher power because I felt like I could prove it was Dr. Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That
on
book,
the list.
yeah, that
What's it
book
about?
changed a lot for me.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so he breaks down meditation and breathing techniques in a very easy and simple way to understand. He also shares some case studies that they've done around electromagnetic energy relative to the emotions that we feel. You can actually measure them now. But it's very it's in layman terms. It's very easy to understand. And I felt like once I could prove that karma or the universe was my higher power, my entire life changed little by little.
Love it.
Huge. Tell us, Cort, what is your favorite podcast if you have one?
This is my favorite podcast, without a doubt. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on the show.
Oh, Cort, why you make my heart I'm so happy.
You're the
Appreciate
man.
it.
I'm a big listener of books. I don't get into podcasts. I don't experiment really with new podcasts, but believe it or not, this is the only podcast that I listen to.
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
love it. I love it.
Appreciate
You're the
it.
man.
Appreciate it.
And then just finally, you pretty much gave it to us, but I want to make sure you lay out everything maybe that we might have missed. People are definitely going to want to follow up with you after this. Where can our listeners find you and reach you after this?
Yeah, absolutely. Cort at theheroadvocate.com. You can also call area code 801-921-2222. If you, again, mention this podcast, I'll get you a free copy of the book sent out. And, I'm otherwise here. I usually get calls and I'm dealing with like pretty heavy stuff, but that's the life that I signed up for. And those are the people that I want to help. I want to tackle big issues head on.
Cort, and I'm going to finally ask you, You have 30 seconds or less. Tell the people what you got going on with you. Promote yourself. Big yourself up. Do it.
Man, I'm always writing. So I've got a couple new books that are going to be out soon. Writing is also very therapeutic for me. I'm tiptoeing into the private equity sector and got a lot of good things going there with hopefully more great information to come soon. But yeah, it's life is, I just want people to understand that I'm not some pink cloud. Every day is rainbows and ponies. You know, life is a struggle, but you get these little microsecond moments like I'm having with you guys where you just realize that you're on the right path, that you're doing the right stuff, and your life is in a place where, you know, it should be. So double down on yourself, let your intuition be the guide, and continue educating yourself with podcasts like these.
I love it, man. Thank you so much, Cort, for taking the time to chat with us today. For me, honestly, I think this has been my favorite conversation, and we've talked the least about finance whatsoever. So that's something that is super cool. And
We
I
did
really
talk
do
about
appreciate it.
finance. We did talk
We
about
did.
finance.
We
You ain't got
did.
the
We
if
did.
you ain't got the right mind, you ain't never gonna get the right money.
Tell them. Tell them.
It's an honor to be on with you guys. It's seriously, I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for being who you are and keep doing what you guys do.
Thank you for your
100%,
time.
man. Thank you.
Keith, how you feeling?
I'm feeling amazing. And the last thing that I would really say is thank you to all of our Cash Rules listeners. And we're going to see you next time.
And if it ain't about the money, don't give me no call. See y'all later.
Peace.